Good morning and welcome to another edition of Awaken the World Live Q&A. My name is Garen and this morning we are going to be talking about perceptions again. So, if you haven't seen the video on thoughts and perceptions, now's the time to write that down and go back and find it and watch that one again as well. And this is an ongoing issue that Kelly and I, both keep seeing. She still experiences it quite a bit. I have come to the point where I am always on guard for my own personal judgments on anything. And this is where the issue comes in. During the live Q&A on Sunday, I casually hit my full tea off the desk and called Kelly to come and run and deal with it. And she had dealt with it. And then I noticed in the video after when I was watching it, I could barely see her, but there she was crawling along the floor looking up into the camera, trying to stay out of the frame. Now, a few people had commented that they, were offended by the idea that she jumped up to deal with that when I asked her to, and then was crawling around on the floor. And when I mentioned that to her, we both had a really good laugh about it because it simply shows where those people are at egoically. My wife teaches piano here at our home. We have a private piano studio. We turned a spare bedroom into a really nice piano studio for her and bought her a beautiful digital grand piano, a Yamaha, that we can record. The music you heard this morning is one of her meditative samples. And we have many more coming, as well as getting into producing some voiceover meditations and making them available for free in the group. For some of them, obviously, and otherwise they'll be available to download through the Apple Store and through the Google Play Store as well. So the deal we have is whenever I'm doing anything, she is the hop to it person. Whenever she is doing anything, having her piano lessons, I'm the hop to it person. And her piano lessons, typically can range from anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half multiple times a day. So I spend a lot of my day as the hop to it person. The issue always comes down to perceptions. And the reason it comes down to perceptions is it's all based on where we're at. And everybody keeps losing this. Everybody. It doesn't matter how awake you think you are. It doesn't matter how consciously aware you feel you are. Watch that that's not just an egoic judgment you're putting on yourself. Conscious awareness is the moment-by-moment realization of where you are at right now. What is the ego up to? Is it trying to lead me astray? Is it trying to lead me into unconsciousness? Is it trying to stay in control? And anytime we look at something without all the information or knowing the whole picture and judge it, what we're really doing is showing where we are at a conscious level. It is pointing to something that's occurring in our life in some way. And the simple vision is enough to trigger this wave of thoughts and feelings about your thoughts, and therefore your perceptions about what you have perceived. And the number of times in history where wrong perception has led to outright warfare and killing and murdering and all other sorts of nasty things are too many to count. I would need about 100,000 pairs of these hands to count them. This is the danger of our perceptions. And this is what I always say to people. We're still going through this flood thing. Obviously, we have a ton of snow melt left to go, plus the rainy season hasn't even started yet. And we're not concerned because really this is a strata, and one way or another it will be dealt with. But we are part of the strata. We are 1/10 of the collective take in the strata. And there's always two ways to go. You can go the way of the greedy homeowner who says, well, you know what? Screw the strata. I want my whole foundation redone properly, the whole 9 yards, which will put the strata in debt and harm everybody. Or you can look at it through a different set of eyes. And in this case, I'm looking through my eyes. And I said to my wife, my perception is the foundation is likely damaged in this spot. My perception, my thoughts about it up front and the way I feel about those thoughts would be to naturally, well, they should damn well fix the foundation. But I realize that is an egoic thing. It comes out of something else in my past. Something else that happened in relation to someone else. Or maybe to me. The idea that if it's not right and I didn't break it, then someone should be responsible. Someone has to fix it. In the case of myself and what I said to my wife, I said, you know, I would also perceive from a higher viewpoint that if we were to do that, we would harm the whole strata and in the process harm ourselves. A strata with a heavy debt load, you can't sell the residences in it very easily. We would tie a lot of people up. We would do a lot of harm in order to appease the way I feel about my thoughts about it. I own those. Those are mine. My perceptions are not correct. They're just perceptions. They're just thoughts and the way you feel about those thoughts. Getting tied up in what you perceive really means turn that gaze around and look within and see within yourself what has actually been triggered in you, because that's what it's really all about. And I was triggered. I'm an ex-military guy. My base core personality since I was a 5-year-old is independence. If it needs to get done, do it yourself. Don't let anyone do it for you unless you can trust them to do it right. The list goes on and on of all these little parts of me that form my core personality, including the soldier side that says, this needs to be done right now. You do this, you do that, and I'm going to do this. Why? Because I know what I'm doing. Is that always the right way to be? No, it's not. But it is the core of my egoic personality. And when it's under my full guide, it's quite beneficial. But sometimes it gets away from me. And when I was downstairs in the basement yesterday afternoon and I was looking at the rotting weeping tile and the foam inserts into the foundation and how they were all falling apart and brown and had to be torn out still, part of me was upset. Part of me was like, you know, this work should have been probably done the first time. Our entire basement is buried in clay. They didn't do anything to put a proper system to pull water away from the foundation itself. And the cost would be truly immense. So rather than let that get the best of me, I simmered down there for a little while, came back to my senses and walked outside and took a look from the outside. And I realized that if I approached the strata and said, look, instead of spending, you know, $15,000 or $20,000 or more trying to get the equipment down to the back end through all the fence lines, which would all have to come down, and destroy everyone's yards in the process in order to dig this spot out, how about instead, whatever the cost, plus a minimal amount to put towards my labor, and I'll build a big 8-foot roof all the way around the long deck and all the way around the corner of the house. That's a problem. I haven't approached him with it yet, but the cost on me doing that deck personally, or that roof over the deck personally and around the corner, will probably be about $3,000, which is a far cry from $20,000 or $30,000. Now I'm going to have to do most of the labor myself. But who am I serving? I'm serving me, and I'm serving the whole at the same time. You see, our perceptions always have to be looked at very, very carefully, because our perceptions are a product of the way our ego thinks about it and then feels about what it thinks about. They're not real. You know, you can see what appears to be someone drowning someone else at the edge of a lake and run up huffing and puffing to find out that they're actually saving them. It just appeared that way. Our thoughts about what we observe and our feelings, both generated by ego. The thoughts are generated in our head. They put out an energy signature, a dissonant energy signature, which our body picks up and reacts to by producing negative feelings. And we become aware at an egoic level of these negative feelings, and then we deepen the cycle by adding additional thoughts on top of this now, in the same negative band. And that negative cycle grows even larger. And I've sat here and watched my wife in some cases. She has, I said to her, if you want to gauge where you are, give the family member of yours that's you've had the least difficulty with, your sister, a phone call. And, let her know in all honesty exactly what you feel about things. Not rudely or ignorantly, with compassion, but tell the truth. Be honest with where you are at right now. And boy, you could just see the thoughts creating the negative feelings and the loop beginning and the loop growing. For about half an hour, I watched her get deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And I finally said to her, I said, honey, you haven't even had the conversation yet. And she was all frustrated. She says, I know, but all these, and I said, you got to catch those. You got to become aware that they're just your thoughts. They're not real. That's not going to happen. That's not what is happening. It's your thoughts about what you perceive. And as long as you are always coming from a point of ego, which is based on the thoughts, your thoughts and perceptions are always tainted by what's going on with you right now. We get up quite early in the morning, and I come running downstairs here because the cat, that cute little cat drinking the water, and believe it or not, she drinks her water like that 90% of the time. It's the cutest thing to watch. She sits there, double dips her little paw and licks it off. And every once in a while she'll have a sip out of it, but rarely. Mostly it's that little paw. And she'll start the whining as soon as she realizes I'm awake. It's like she hasn't eaten in a week. And since I'm the tiger, she stays right on my tail. She comes all the way down here, and I have to feed her first thing. That's the very first thing I have to do. And then I make us both a cup of coffee, and then we typically go out for an hour walk. Well, in that time between feeding the cat and waiting for Kelly to come down, sometimes I almost fall asleep on the stairs, and I'm a little groggy. And in that state, my thoughts are different and my perceptions are different. And this morning, I didn't have my glasses on when I go walking because I have some distance vision issues. And I was almost falling asleep on the stairs by our front door, and I looked down the hall, and I thought I could have sworn there were two cats sitting there. And yet Karma was sitting right beside me. And there's two. And then it clued in on me the multiple reflections that were happening to produce the image of two cats down the hallway. And yet, for a brief second, you could not have convinced me otherwise. There was two cats. This is the way our perceptions work. Now, that's a relatively simple example. So let's look at a little more realistic example, maybe, of what happens in daily life. You're driving down the road in the morning and you're going to work and you're in a mood because you fought with your mate before you left. So you're already angry and upset. Now, somebody cuts you off. They weren't like really close to you, but they were close enough on the highway that they probably should have waited. And normally, your thoughts about it would have been, here we go again, and that would have been the last thing. But today, because of the state your ego was already in, you react quite differently to being cut off. And you speed up and you chase the guy down. Why? So you can drive by and give him the finger out the window. Like that's really going to solve anything. But somehow you think that's going to make you feel better. And it doesn't. It never does. This is probably the biggest danger that we face on our planet in terms of waking up, is understanding that our thoughts and our feelings about our thoughts, which create our perceptions, are just that. They're not real. They're our interpretation based on our egos, not what's actually happening, not what other people think is happening. 10 different people at the scene of the same accident will give 10 different reports. It's a common thing. Everyone's perception is different based on how they register it, why they register it, what's going on with them inside at a mental level when they register it, and all sorts of other things that come into play. What is their current physiological state, their psychological state? All of these things will affect our thoughts and the way we feel about our thoughts. And we must always, always, always be on guard for the judgments that we place on everything. The judgment that it's a beautiful day outside, it's not wrong to think that. Where the issue comes in is when your neighbor, who absolutely hates the sun and can't go out in the sun because of the almost albino-like nature of their skin, and has to protect themselves at all costs from the sunlight, thinks it's a miserable day outside. And you think your neighbor's crazy for thinking that way. But what's actually crazy is you thinking that your perception of the day is any more or less valid than their perception of the day. Neither one are actually valid in as much as they're only a perception. They belong to us. They don't belong to the situation. They don't belong to the day. My perception that it is a nice day has nothing to do with the day, and everything to do with me. My perception that the neighbors we have living far down the complex at the other end are not good parents is my perception. And other people share that perception. But it is just a perception. At some level, they're only doing what they know how to do. They're only doing what their vision allows them to do. They're not bad parents. They have too many issues going in their own life. Too many harmful things pulling away from what they wish to do deep inside, and that is be good parents on every level. Our perceptions, our thoughts, and I keep going back, and so I want to really nail this into people's heads, okay? Our thoughts and our feelings about our own thoughts create our perceptions. You can't put it on the other person. You can't say, I don't like the way you do this. You can, but it's meaningless. Because the problem lies with you. It is you that does not accept or does not like what you perceive. So I would remind you, as I remind Kelly all the time, to always be on guard for our perceptions. It's all right to look outside and say it's a beautiful day as long as you're fully aware that it's a perception. And that if your neighbor says, I hate today, it's terrible, I can't even step outside, understanding that you have a perception and that's your truth, and they have a perception and that's their truth, allows you to enter their truth with them and say, I understand. To me, it's beautiful. But to you, you'd rather it was cloudy out so maybe you could go outside without covering every inch of your body up. And I understand that. This allows us, instead of perceiving our neighbor as crazy for them hating the nice, warm, sunny days to be outside, to instead understanding their thoughts and perceptions of the day. And therefore allowing compassion and empathy to arise from that understanding and the recognition that their perception is true for them and valid for them. But it's only valid for them. If they tried to put their perception onto me, they've crossed a line where things simply cease to work. And the same goes in the other direction. But understanding my neighbor's perception, I can then go to my neighbor and say, you know what? You don't have a roof over your deck. If we work together, we could build a roof over your deck. And you could be outside on the sunny day and enjoy the view and enjoy the wildlife and still be covered by the sun. And then the magic can begin to happen. I hope this has been an informative little piece on thoughts, feelings, and perceptions again. And again, the biggest warning I can give to people, okay? Understand that the way we perceive anything belongs to us. You can't put it on the other person or the other event. You have to own it. And as I said, we're just ending up on the Facebook Live stuff. The first official Q&A on Wednesday will be via YouTube, and we will post in advance. We do hope that everyone gets on with the subscribing to the Awaken the World YouTube channel so that you'll also receive notifications from YouTube when there is a live event scheduled. And that's really it for about today. I'm going to return you to the candle and the music for a tiny bit before we say goodbye. Namaste and much love to you all.